Okay. Hey guys, so welcome to this session that we're going to have a short session on Java about how things work in Java and what syntax we'll be needing in the further upcoming sessions because we'll be completing all our problems using Java, right? So starting, most of you guys would be aware that how we are going to declare variables and how the loops work. So I'll be simply telling you about how the things work in Java. So for declaring anything as integer, we can simply have that as int. So we have character in Java. So how we can do that is so in the single quotes, we can declare whatever character we have. So that's D in this case. And we can have a string in that case. So string is declared as, so let's name that as V. That's in double quotes. And it could be like India. Okay, so that's the string for us. So there are we can have any other data types that are there. So int, character, string, we can use these simply as we use in C++ or other languages. So what there are loops. So the syntax for the loop is again the same. Int I is equal to 0, I less than whatever value we are having, suppose 10, and I plus plus, and we'll have a curly braces in which are all the things work that are in that we need to do in this loop. So let us suppose we need to check that whether that number is even or odd. So if whatever number we are getting from I percent, so percent is for modulus. So all the operators are same as they are in C++ Java, that are plus, minus, multiplication, modulus, division. So I'll simply check if that's equal to 0, that's going to be an even number, else that's going to be an odd number. So to print a statement in this, we have system dot out dot print ln, right? So we print I. So we need to have a semicolon after each statement over here. And in the if statement, if there's just one line of code after the if statement, we need not have curly braces. And if there are more than one lines of code in this if statement, we need to have curly braces for this, right? So let's simply try running this code. Okay, so that works, and here we need a semicolon, right? Okay, so that's it. So we are having the even numbers. We were starting from 0, that's why 0 is included, right? So that was the for loop for us. So we can also have a while loop similarly. So in while, we put the condition in it first, while I is less than 10, curly brackets, then we'll put the code, whatever we want to do, that comes here. That's if this thing, and finally we do the updation. So this first line will come inside the if, and whatever line comes after this, if that's not in the curly brackets, so or what we can do is we have a curly bracket here and it finish after this statement, and after this in the while loop we need to make the updation, that is I plus plus, and initially I was equal to 0. All right, so this is how while loop works in Java. That's again similar to the C++. Those who are already having aware about the C++ syntax, these things are going to be almost similar. So again, in this case, we'll get the even numbers. So let's run that again. Yep. So till 8, that's by the for loop, and after that, that's by the while loop. So these are few basic things that will be keep on using in our all the problems in the coming sessions. The for loops, the how we are declaring the variables, the while loops, the if statements, and with if we can have else if with the condition, and finally we can have else, right? So we need to put a condition in the else if, so we can have any number of conditions in that, any number of else ifs, and finally we have an else, right? So let me just comment these things down. Okay, so this was all about the declaration of variables. And one thing more, we need to always declare a variable before using that, as it is in C++, and it is not in Python because it's automatically declared in that case. So here if I do not declare I, but I still use I in the while loop, it's going to give me an error, right? So here's the error because it cannot find the symbol. So we always need to declare the variable before using that variable. So we'll be so these were the basics that were totally basic syntax of Java. So we'll be using the data structures that are like stack. We will be doing questions related to stack, queue, strings, and linked list. So I'll give you a hint that how we declare stacks and all that. So first, to declare stack, we need to call the class stack. Okay, so before that, how we declare objects in Java. So here, whatever, let's create a class for that. So we are having a class, that's a temporary class. Okay, so in the class, we can declare variables. We can have a constructor. Suppose I'm having a, I've declared this variable, right? So now I can have a constructor to update the value of this class. So the name of constructor is always going to be equal to the class, that is temp. So, and what we are filling in it, it will be giving a value, like let's call that variable b, and we'll updating our a value with the b. So here it is. So whenever we make the object of this class temp, we'll pass a parameter to the object, and that will put the value of a is equal to b. So now we can have as many as methods in the class. So let's have a method that is void. Let's say that's print value. And what do we do in that is we simply print the value of a, system.out.println a, right? So let's make the function public, and let's make this as public class. So no need to do that. Okay, so we'll be calling this function. So how to declare the objects in Java? So we call the class name. So our class name was temp. So after that, we give the object to that. So object. So till here we have made an object of that class. But in Java, we need to further allocate memory to that, so that we need to have that variable a for this object, and we have whatever variables we have, we need some space for that. So to do that, we'll use the keyword new, and we'll again call the constructor of that class, that is temp, and whatever value we pass, let's suppose that's 3. So this is the syntax how we create an object for any class in Java. So whenever you want to create an object for any of the classes, you need to follow this syntax, that is name of the class, name of the object, whatever you want to give, then new for allocating the memory, and finally calling the constructor of that class. And if you have not declared the constructor, you will simply call the empty constructor without passing the parameters, because that's automatically made in Java. So it's 3. So let's call the function that will be called using the object of that class, obj.print value, right? Okay, so let's run this statement now. And okay, so we are having 3 at the last. So let me just comment down the code that we did till now. So that's all commented. So now let's run this. Okay, so we are getting 3 in this way, because so whatever value we pass in the constructor, we get that value in the print function. So that is the value a would be holding next, right? So okay, so now it's 5. And what if we call the empty constructor? Okay, so because we have declared the constructor, in that case we need to allocate memory to that. So let's do that we remove the constructor part. We have simply declared a variable. So we have not initialized any value to a that we just declared as integer, but we are simply storing. So that's going to give me 0 because that would be automatically initialized to 0 in that case, right? We can even simply give value to this a that's equal to 6, but in this case we cannot change the value once it's given to the variable because that's the final value it's having. So we don't have any access to the constructor. If we pass 5 in this constructor, it won't update the value of a to 5. That's the use of constructor, to give the values to whatever the variables we are declaring inside the class. So here's an error again. Okay, so let's again comment down this. All right, so we are done with this. Now let's talk about, so there are already inbuilt classes that we'll be using. So like that's for stack, that's for queues, we'll be using for hash maps, for HashSet. So those are already inbuilt classes. So we have already imported java dot input output. So we can import for that java dot import java dot utility util dot staff. So we have imported all the classes that we are having for utility in Java. So now we'll simply call the object, we'll make the object of that class and we'll start using that class. So let's start with the stack. So for stack, first of all, we need a stack, and here we also have a parameter to pass along with the class, that what value we are going to fill in the stack. So if we are going to have a stack of integers, so we'll write integer in this. So we are going to have a stack and we'll be just filling the integer values in that. So we'll be filling that as a parameter to this class. So that's integer. So if we have a character over here, so we'll write character. Now this stack becomes of character. So we can only push characters in this particular stack. So let's revert back to integer. So now we need to create an object of this class. That's again obj is equal to new stack, and we will call the inbuilt constructor for this class, whatever it is, right? Or we can, if we pass the size, if we pass any number, that would be the fixed size of that stack, right? So now how we use the functions that we are having for the stack. So we have created object of this stack. Now we need to use the functions that we already have for this stack. So we have object dot. So now we'll call the functions that are already defined automatically in the utility package for the stack class, right? So that is like push. So here we push the value 5, right? Then we can, so there are few functions like obj.push, obj.peek. That's give me the top value, whatever is in the stack. Let's print that out. Dot out dot println. Okay, so let's just run this. So we are getting 5. So let me push one more value, that is obj dot push the value 10. So now in the stack, it's first in first out. No, it's last in first out, right? So now this time 10 would be at the top of the stack, first 5, then 10. So this time peak should be the value 10. So let's check that. Because it's leafhold, last value comes in, it goes out first. So we have 10. So we can use these all the methods that we're having in the stack. So you can just search on the Google that stack methods, that's stack methods in Java. So let's we are having few methods, like let's open geeks for geeks first. Okay, so here we'll be given with all the methods that we can use in this class. So that's push, pop, peek, empty, search. So we'll be using push function to push the value inside that stack, then pop to remove that value from the stack. Then we'll be having the peek value that gives the top value we are having at the stack. And empty is, it would return a boolean that whether that stack is empty or not. So if that stack's empty, it will just return the true value, and if that stack's not empty, it will return false, right? and search elements that will just search element in the whole stack and return whether they found that element, else it will return -1. So these are the inbuilt functions that you can use for the stack class. Okay. So similarly, we have another class that's Q class, that is QUE. Let's make that for integer. Object obj is equal to, let's name that as obj1 just to remove the confusion, or for better understanding we'll name that as Q. So Q, its object is Q. New, and we can call the same class QUE. We can even call the constructor of some other class, like if we want Q using linked list, so I can call linked list here. All right, so now again we'll be having like we had here for the stack, right? So we are having all the functions. So let's search for the Q methods in Java. So we need to know all the methods that we are having for Q. So these are the few methods that we'll be having, that is add, peek, element, remove, poll, size. So add is to add the element, peek is to remove the first element. Sorry. So peek is to remove the element at the head because it's first in first out, right? So element, it gives the element at the head of the stack. Remove, to remove the element that we were having at head. Poll, it there's a bit difference in remove and poll. What poll does is it removes and returns the head of the queue, so whatever we are having, right? So but remove does, that is the remove, the method removes and returns the head of the queue. It throws no such element exception when the queue is empty, but that is the difference in poll. It returns null if the queue is empty, but whenever there is something in queue, both the functions do the same work, as same as the remove and the poll. And size gives the total number of elements that we are having inside our queue. So let's use add and peek for this in this case. So that is q dot add. Let's add 50. Okay, 5. And again let's add one element, that is q dot add 10. So we'll see difference between stack and queue. And let's call the same function, that is to print the value. So its object is q dot peek. Let's run this. Okay, so and it should give the first value that we have inserted, that's 5, because it's first in first out. So this 10 is for the stack. So let me just comment this. And this 5, that's the first added value that we are having for this particular case. So we are having 5 in this case. So if we remove that value before it, that is q dot poll, so this 5 would be removed from this particular queue, and we would, the next value left with is 10. So now it should return 10, right? Yep, so that's 10, right? So that's the syntax that we need to understand, that how we call, how we create objects and how we call the inbuilt methods for that particular inbuilt class or interface that we are having. So stack here is the class and queue is the interface. So for that, we need to call the constructor of class linked list in that case, because queue has already, so we'll just have some session in which we'll be learning about interfaces and classes. So for now, you just need to grab the syntax for this, right? So what else we'll be using in the initial classes is the HashMap. Again, for HashMap, we'll declare the same. So HashMap consists of key value pairs. So for what key we are having what value. So in queue and stack, we were just passing one variable that the values are going to be of integer type, right? But in HashMap, we are going to pass the two values, one for the key and one for the value. So both can be as, let's take it as integer, comma, that would be the key, and value, let's suppose that is a character. So again, let's name h as its object, We'll call HashMap. That's the name of the class. Nothing in the constructor. We can also specify its size if we want, like 50. We don't want our hash map to exceed the size 50. So for that, we can initially call the constructor. Or if we do not pass that, we'll have a hash map that would be automatically created according to our requirements. So it starts whenever its particular limit is filled, it automatically increases the size of that hash map, right? So again, we are having some inputs for this. Let's like h dot add. So we'll be passing two values like 5 comma, for 5 I should be having character a, and again let me add one more value, like for 10 I'll be having character b, right? So I'm adding the values in the hash map. So in HashMap, why HashMap is better than any other data structure? So whenever we need a solution of such case, when we want fetch and add, so in this that is done in O of one time. So we need not traverse anything. It directly reaches that key or index and simply add the values at that key index. So you just need to know the syntax. We'll be having a separate session of how HashMap works or how HashSet works. So in HashMap, the syntax is add values and s.get. So we'll simply pass the key in this case, and we would be giving, it would return us the value for that. So let's print that out. System.out.println. So that's what we want. Okay, so we are running this now. So it should return B in this case for the key 10. So there's something, cannot find the symbol H. That's in this case. Let me just have a look at that. Okay, so yep. So instead of add in HashMap, what we have is put. All right, so let's run this now. So in this is the class just to learn the syntax, that how we call the things. So this 10 was already for the queue that we had. Let's comment that down. So it will simply return whatever value we are having for that particular key. So for 10, it's B, and if we pass 5 here, it would give us the value A, right? All right, so that's for HashMap. Similar, the syntax is similar for HashSet, but what's the difference in HashSet is that we do not have key, we just have values, but they are unique values, they are not repeated in that case. So let's have integer, let's name that HS HashSet new HashSet constructor, and let's add dot put, and that's 5, right? Next, I need to just check the syntax. That's hash set methods. So is it put and get? Yep, that's hash. Okay, so that should be like, yep. So we have created a set. Where are the examples? Okay, so that's add, and in this we cannot give a key value and return. So we can simply check whether that element is in the hash set or not. So the most used methods would be adding elements to the hash set, and contains, to check that whether element exists in that or not. So let's do that. Add. So add, right? And now we'll check contains 5. Okay, we'll print that out. System.out.println. All right. Okay, so we have inserted 5, and now we are checking that whether that hash set contains 5 or not, right? So there's something wrong with the add. That's not that's HS, right? Mm, again, it's HS. Okay, that's true. So that was the last decimal command. So if we search for any other value, suppose 10, so it should return false because 10 does not exist in that hash map, right? So false for that. So if we can have a function hs.remove 5, it will remove the 5, and when we check 5 after this, it should return false in that case. False. Okay, so now we'll discuss about the strings in Java, because that's important topic to discuss. So let's have a string is equal to, that's S, let's name that as super 30. Okay, so let's see that first, how this works. System dot out dot print ln. So that's S, right? Okay, so it should print super 30 in this case. Should come. So it's super 30. So let me comment down previous outputs. Okay. So what we can do is we can use the concatenation. So whenever we add a plus sign, we can concatenate any particular string with another string. So let's suppose I have a space is, we can say rocks. So it should give super 30 space rocks. So that's it, and that's how we concatenate. And if we try to add an integer to this particular string format, what it will do is it will automatically convert that particular integer to a string, and it will get concatenated to that string. So super 30 rocks 10. So what we could write it in another way is that we remove 30 from here, we add another we add 10 plus, so it gives S plus 10 plus rocks, that is super, in place of 10 it should be 30, super 30 rocks. So that's it, super 30 rocks. So now what functions we can have for the string. So sometimes so we need to know that how to iterate for a string, that how we can pick a particular character at a string first. So println system dot out dot println. So I want a particular character in this particular string, that is s dot, we'll use character add function, and I'll pass that particular index what in what character I want for that. So let's suppose I want p, so I'll pass 2 and we'll run that. So it should return p in this case. So that's p for us, right? So now if we want to just iterate through the whole string, so there's a one syntax that we have in the for loop, that's for int I is equal to 0, I less than, we can have another method for the string, that is string dot length or string dot size. So s dot length and I plus plus. So this, what I'll do is I'll simply call out character that dot out function method for all the particular characters. System dot out dot println s dot char at I. So it will return me all the characters turn by turn, right? So I've used ln here, so it will be printed in separate lines. So that is super. Okay. So before that, let me just right. So that's how we iterate through an array. So that's due to ln. So if I remove this ln from this, it will give it in a single line. So ln is for changing the line That's super. So another way how we can use the for loop in this Java, that's a good way. That's an easier method. So for I'm going to have a characters from this string. So I'll have a character. Let me name that character as C, and that's going to come from the string S. So I cannot pick a particular object if it's not of the same type from that string, right? So I'll convert this string into an character array. Okay, so s dot to char array. So that's another way to pick the values, that is iterate through any particular data structure. So here it's a string, it could be a stack, it could be a linked list, it could be anything like any simple list or array. So for character C in s.toChar array, I'll simply print that character C, that is system.out.println, and I'll print C. So for that, let me just comment down this. Okay, so for C in these, so it will automatically pick all the values from that string and print that out. So there is S, we have nothing in S, so it should be a method. Now it's already. Okay, so it again prints super. So if we are having similarly, we can even iterate in the array. So if we have array of, so how we create array in, so these are the few functions of string. So there are, we have a different functions that we can search on the Google to remove any particular character from the string, to add a character, to append a character to a string. So we need to have learn for that, right? So the next thing, that how we declare array. So array of integers. So I've called that class. I'll make its object, that is, let's name that as ARR is equal to new integer. I can pass the size here. So whatever array I have, that means I have the size 10, right? So now I have an array of naming ARR and its size is 10. So initially all the values in this array would be initialized to 0. So let me print those values. That is for integer I in ARR, I'll print those values, that is system.out.println. All right, so I'll print I here. That's it. So initially all the values are 0. So let me just check that. Yeah, we have all the values of 0. So we can simply put any values. Suppose AR of 5 is equal to 67. So that value should be updated now. So it's 67 at the index 5. We cannot access any other index that's not present in the array. So let's suppose 10. So this array would be from 0 till 9. So that is the size 10. So if we try to access index 10, that's going to give us an error. Yep, that's the error for us. That is array index out of bounds. So we can just have this for any other values, maybe at 1, 0 till 9. And this is the way how we can iterate through an array. So that's 67, right? So that's array for us. So next thing that we should know is the list, that is array list. So array list is again a data structure that we'll be using most of the times. In that, what we do is we can simply without declaring the initial size of the array, we can keep on appending the elements at end of that list. So like we are having list in our Python, or vector in our C++. So it's the same thing we are having in Java, that is list. So list will be having integers in list. So integers, let's name that list as L, new array list, and that's it. So we'll be using append function to add any values to this particular list, that is L dot append. Let me check, it's append or it's add. So list in Java. So we'll discuss all the methods that we are having. Yep. So Java list. Okay, so we are having add. Yep, that's add in this case. So we'll just give, we can give the index if we want to add a particular index, or it will add at the last. Clear to clear the index, equal to find if that object is there, generate a hash code to get fetch the value, check if the list is empty or not. So these are the all methods that we can use for the list inbuilt class interface list and the class array list, right? So that's list dot add 10 l dot add 5. So what's the use of this list is that we need not, so it will never go out of bounds. We can keep on adding elements till we want. Add 6. All right, so let's run that. Let's iterate and print all the elements. That is for int I in list L, simply system dot out dot println. So that's I for us. Yep, that's it. Let me just comment the previous one. That's, yep. Okay, so we should have end of file. There's something, there's an extra bracket somewhere. Let me remove this bracket. That's at line 83. Is there for what? Okay, this bracket should be in the next line. Oh, that's fine. Yep, 10, 5, and 6. We can iterate through this list. So we can use the other methods that we're having in list to remove elements to check if it's empty or not. So let's check if it's empty or not. So system dot out dot println l dot is empty. Yeah, that's it. So as we have already elements, so it should return false because the list is not empty. So this is how we call methods. So false, 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 even in each iteration, right? So this is the way that we use the object dot whatever the method name. So we need to either remember all the methods, or we can simply from the practice we will keep on learning that what works. So these are the list we have completed. We have completed strings. Okay, so for the array we have list, so we can keep on adding the elements without giving the size. So same thing we have for string as well. For string, the class is StringBuilder. So let me have a last example of StringBuilder. String builder. So we'll be passing string, and let's name that as S30, right? New string builder. That's it. So I'll be passing characters to it. We can pass whatever parameter we want. All right, so str dot, let's check all the functions that we are having for string builder. Should be that string builder. Let me search this. String builder methods in Java. All right, so we'll be having the method to append, method to get. So those are some few common methods that we have in most of the data structures, right? Okay, so we're having a append to add the particular character at last, and what we can have is append quote point. This method appends a string representation of the quote point or given to sequence. We can check the capacity. We can have a character at particular sequence at particular point. And these are all the about 27 methods that we are having for the string builder class that we can use. So for initially, we simply need to know what the classes are and where these can be used, that we can simply think. So we need to add something to string, we can use string builder at this point. So string builder dot append, let me append A first, S first, and let me call control C. So U, T, E, R. So we have appended these few words, and finally we'll print that system dot out dot println. To print this particular string, we need to convert it back to a string. We cannot print it as string builder, right? So let's first try that what happens when we do that. It can work, but if we need to return the strings in that case, then we need to convert it back to the string, right? So let's wait for that. We need to comment these first. Okay, so there is an error that string builder does not take parameters because it would always be characters in this case. We cannot add integers in a string builder, right? So string builder, yeah. So we have super, and now its data type is string builder. And if we want its data type back to string, we'll use the function toString. Because most of the times we want string as the data type because that's mostly used. So this function would be excessively used to convert string builder object back to the string. So it would again return super to us. That's again super. So that's all that we have discussed. That is string builder, array list. Then we have strings, HashSet, HashMap, queue, stack, and the basic syntax of this. Okay, so that's all for this session. So thank you everybody for listening.